Okay, I'm Kimball Westerson, Professor Westerson, Professor of English and lead of the professional writing program here. Dean Detweiler was very kind to ask me to do the welcome and the introductions. I think we can agree that one of the most powerful forces we have at our disposal is storytelling. We do it with each other, we do it professionally, we do it through film, we do it around tables, we do it with family, we watch it on Netflix, we binge it on Netflix, right? It's everywhere, and we're part of that as filmmakers and writers. That's what we do. And today I'm going to introduce you to a few of them. Dr. Dean Detweiler, he joins us as the new Dean of COFAP. Yay! Yes. Applause is great. He's a filmmaker, an author, a theologian. He has been you get your degree from USC, I know, but you are also at Biola, is that correct? And at Pepperdine. So he's kind of a big deal around here, and he even has a Wikipedia page, just letting you know. So, these are the Boylan Sisters. Yes, yay, absolutely. If you haven't heard, they're going to be working on a feature film on campus starting in January. They have the production Mustard Seed Entertainment that they founded together. Alexandra is an actress, right? And Andrea, a writer. Now, I could tell you all kinds of things about them, that, you know, they're co-founders of this production company, and they've made award-winning films, and they are in Walmart, on the shelves in Walmart. You can buy their films there. They were also on Netflix for 2 years. You might recognize one of the titles, Catching Faith. I think that just switched over to Amazon Prime. Am I correct? Right, it switched platforms, so you can still grab it there, right? Switched is another title that you might recognize. And you care about all of that, but you also care about what they're going to tell you about their experiences and how they got where they are. So I am going to let them all do that right now. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Kimball. Thank you, Kimball, and thanks, professional writing students. And where's the professional writing students? Yes. How about we have screenwriting students out there too? Yeah, look at those screenwriting students. Filmmaking students? Theater majors? Got some of those? All right. Glad to have you all here tonight.
Thank you.
For this conversation. And it's Hollywood How To with these filmmakers. And it's the first of really, we're going to do 3 different sessions. So tonight, how to write and sell your screenplay. Then tomorrow night, how to kind of finance your project, how to build a company. And then Friday night will be perhaps the most fun. I don't know, maybe they're all going to be fun. But Friday night, we're going to see their film Switched and then talk to them about it. Like, how did it get made and how did it get put together and how does it get out there? So you got 3 opportunities in one big week. So glad you're here tonight. If your friends couldn't be here tonight, maybe tell them to come another. So here's the sisters. I'm so thrilled. Where did you guys come in from?
I came from Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin.
Of course you did.
Yeah, of course I did. I drove too. So, yeah.
I drove from Los Angeles, California.
Yeah, there's LA.
There was nobody that said yay about the Midwest. You're not from there?
Yeah, there we go. So the Hollywood How To, you all, in some ways, are both trained and also self-taught. Is that a fair summary?
Yes.
Very much so.
Yes.
Your background? You guys came from a show business family?
Nope, our dad's a pastor.
But our family loved movies.
We do
And I
love
always say
movies,
my
but-
dad worked as a projectionist when he was a kid, and he actually built a theater in our basement. So we grew up before the age of how it is now, before VHS, where we got to watch like 5 to 7 minute clips of Disney films in our basement on a wall. And he used an old
16 millimeter?
Yep, 16 millimeter projector. So
Yeah.
we did come from a family that loved movies.
Yes. But had no connections
No.
in the film industry.
Right.
Just we grew up in Massachusetts, a long way from Hollywood.
And so for you to go from Massachusetts to say, yeah, I'll be an actress, I'll move to Hollywood,
Yeah.
that was super simple, probably.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I did it at 19 all by myself. I really wanted to pursue acting, and I just moved out west when I was 19, a little Toyota Corolla, and I was like, I'm going to be a movie star, and I didn't know a single soul, and I moved cross country, and when I got there, I didn't know like houses didn't come with silverware. That's how young and naive I was. I was like, wait a minute, what? But I really wanted to make it work, so I stuck it out, and I spent 10 years really pounding the pavement as an actress. I studied with Harry Mastergeorge, who is a very acclaimed acting teacher, and I would run to auditions all day and do the whole waiting tables by night, and I had a very stereotypical actor life. Very challenging, and after actually 10 years in Los Angeles where my life was kind of derailing and I couldn't really get any work, I did start thinking maybe I need to build my own career because I am waiting for someone to pick me, and when you're a really hard worker and you're an actor, you can't work hard enough for someone to choose you. It's so based on so many things that are outside of your control. So I actually packed up my bags and I moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I heard that the industry was booming there, and I also just needed to get out of LA and like refocus. And I started standing in. I stood in for Megan Fox. I stood in for Kat Dennings on the movie Thor. So I started getting onto these huge sets, and I met like all these incredible ragtag independent filmmakers. And I was like, who wants to just start making stuff for fun? And we started making shorts and web series and just, running out in the backyard shooting stuff. And that led us all to decide to make a feature. Literally, we shot a feature all in $10,000, a little thriller about a girl who returns home to her childhood abandoned house, and there's squatters living in it and they don't want to leave. Did you get that? That's the hook. That's the tagline as the writer. And we just made it. And then it ended up selling to RLJ Releasing, one of the largest distribution companies. It was on the shelves of Walmart, did really well. And that began us into writing and producing and creating our own movies. So that's kind of my story of getting into the industry.
That's fantastic. Well, give her a hand. I mean, right?
Bravo. 22
bravo.
years later, I'm still at it.
Right? Bravo.
I survived.
And Andrea, before you were a screenwriter, even
Yes.
while you were a screenwriter, you
Yes.
had this other thing going on that
Right.
required licensure and
Yeah.
helping people. You're a helping professional, right?
I am. Yes, I'm actually by trade a licensed clinical social worker and have worked as an in-home therapist with kids who have experienced trauma of some kind for years and years and years. But exactly where Alexandra paused the story is kind of where I got invited in. She was in a meeting after the success of her movie being sold that they were said, well, what's next? And they said that the next big thing in movies was going to be faith-based dragon movies. So we should have written a dragon faith-based movie, but we didn't. And she said, I'm going to talk to my sister. So she called me, and I had never written a screenplay. I enjoy movies and television, but I had no experience with it. And she said, will you be a consultant on our script? Because the audience that watches faith-based movies are 35 to 55-year-old Midwest soccer moms. And guess what? That's what I was, exactly what I was. I had 3 kids, all in elementary school at the time. And we started talking, and before, I think, the end of the week, my consulting became, want to just help us write this? And then we wrote together, and we wrote in, Alexandra moved to where I lived, and we wrote together. And then the fun part of the story, which we'll go into more detail, but the fun part of the story is it's really cold where I live in the winter, not like this. And we would need to get out of the house, so we go to coffee shops and write together in coffee shops. And if you have had any experience in the Midwest, Midwest nice is a true thing. So people just talk to you. So we're like working, and people would turn around and go, what are you doing? And we're like, well, we're writing a screenplay. Oh, you are? Would you film it here? And we're like, well, Wisconsin doesn't have any film incentives, and we'll talk about that a little later too. But they were like, well, what if we gave you everything you needed to film the movie? We're like, well, talk to us. And by the end of it, we ended up making the movie in our hometown, my hometown right now, Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. So that's where I got to enter into the journey.
Very cool. And I think folks here may want to know why you're here. Why are we here at Grand Canyon? What brings you to this moment?
We're going to make Identity Crisis, which will be our 6th faith-based film,
Yes.
which is incredible.
That's cool. Congratulations.
Identity Crisis is about a shy science whiz in college who struggles with imposter syndrome and not feeling good enough and doesn't have the courage to try. And she figures out how to clone herself to create the perfect identity and send her off to do all the things that she's afraid of. In the process, learning that God already created her the perfect version of herself and that she has all the courage, she just had to try. So it's a super adorable movie and all about our identity lying in Christ and also, saying just try. Failure is just part of the process. You're never really failing. It's just, if you knew my life story, failure doesn't exist. It's just another step to the next path.
Beautiful.
And yeah.
Beautiful. And do you need any help on that movie?
Lots. We need
do.
extras and production assistants, and extras are the biggest thing. That's a big
And when
part
are
of
you
the movie.
starting? When does this movie begin?
We start shooting January 6th.
January 6th. Anybody going to be around on January 6th? Well, look at that. There's a bunch of people that can help.
Come work
Come
on
on
Identity
out.
Crisis.
Come on out.
Yes, it's going to be fun.
All right. So that's clear. Any questions? You guys with us so far? All right. All right. I think we got some potential help
Yes.
there on the
Yay.
horizon. That's
There's
good.
lots of hands.
So let's talk a little bit about your writing process.
I brought my book.
You have this book.
This-
Now, what does this book have to do with your writing process? Anybody have you seen this book before? All right, some are familiar. Yes.
We love Save the Cat. When we're writing, we have a Bible and we have Save the Cat because this is our screenwriting Bible and we have the Bible on the table. We kind of jumped into becoming, I was pursuing acting. She was doing clinical license social working. And when my sales agent of my thriller had said, I had written another thriller and that's what I was trying to present to him. And he said, you should really do faith-based films. And if you make it, I'll get the funding. So immediately I was like, yes, okay, I get to make a movie and you get the money? Yes. And he said, the only requirement is football. So Andrea, he was
That's a
like,
big
football,
requirement.
faith, sells. And I'm like, oh my gosh, football. And then that's when Andrea and I were talking about how do we make this a football movie? But realistically, as us as writers, we thought, well, we'll make it about a woman. And at the time, we were looking at the faith-based space and didn't see a lot of women being represented or seeing ourselves on camera represented. So we were like, well, let's do that. And then we called our sales agent and he said, no, you can't do that because there's no numbers in the marketplace to back up a female-driven faith-based film. So
Wow.
we said, well, I think that's
Wow.
because no one's doing it.
Right?
And
Yeah.
if we do it, there's an audience. And he said, okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Thank you. Yeah, this
Yeah,
was
that's-
back in 2013. There was
Yeah.
really very little nothing was starring women. And a lot of the what I learned going to studio meetings and listening to people was that they feel like the women buy it and they want to keep the husbands in the seats. And we were like, but if the women are buying it, we should also give them an option to see a movie that speaks to
They
them
wanna
too.
see it,
So anyway, so then we got Save the Cat because it is such an amazing. It just has such a great structure. I feel like you can't go wrong with Save the Cat. And we were kind of teaching ourselves how to write a screenplay. I mean, I had studied acting, so I had studied dialogue for years. So that was a big strength I brought to it. And Andrea brings so much of her writing. But Save the Cat, oh, I just love it. We always go by Save the Cat because you can never write yourself into a hole or write yourself down a rabbit's hole and be like, what happens at the end of this movie? Because there's a lot of legwork you have to do in the beginning of Save the Cat before you can even get to the screenwriting process, which will save you in the screenwriting process.
Yeah. And Andrea, you just kind of got dragged into this suddenly, okay, I guess I'm writing a screenplay.
We were like, read this book.
For sure. That's exactly how it happened. Yes. And it was in my dining room, so I had to do it. No, I got to join. But I think we're also very structured people. And one of the things that's really cool about Save the Cat is, like Alexandra said, you tend to want to just creatively write. And that's actually, I'm a lifelong journaler. So I have written for a long time and had written a book at the time that we wrote our first screenplay. Writing a screenplay is very different than writing. Like I kind of spit lots of stuff out and then go, oh, that's no good, and oh, and then you figure it out and something beautiful comes out. But in order to get to a really healthy place to do the spitting out, there's a lot of steps, and Save the Cat is really helpful with the real how-to, because we actually you start with your log line. So you're starting, it's like your thesis statement, and we not only do we come up with that concept, but then we start talking about it. And as you can see, Alexandra's really good at those log lines and pitches, and so she's really, really good at just talking to everybody about it and saying, what do you think? How does this sound? And that's how we start. And as we go through, we do the beat sheet, and then we do an outline, and then we get to say, the story begins.
And we always start with a log line, and we do not even start the beat sheet until the log line is solid. Like, we could go in and pitch that to a studio and they would get it like that. So we'll sit there. Even Identity Crisis, we spent like a couple weeks getting the log line perfect. And the log line is so important because your whole movie has to support the log line. So if you're, you have to think all the way into distribution, and when someone's looking through Netflix, that's the log line, that's the hook, and then you have to make sure that your movie is representing the hook that you're giving them. So it's really important. I encourage people to really always have a log line or an elevator pitch. And you go to like what the book says, go to Starbucks, go everywhere and pitch it and see if people go. You can tell if people light up like, oh, I want to see that movie, or if they're like, You're like, okay, maybe that won't be the next big hit. So I won't write that,
Well, and it's interesting to me, so your log line for Identity Crisis, you knew it so well. I already had the slides that backed up what you said, right? So in other words, you've internalized it to such a degree that you are absolutely nailing your pitch in that elevator set. And why do you need an elevator pitch? Why is that?
Well, the biggest thing is when you're going to pitch it. So if you're in a studio meeting, you've got to be able to do it really quick, and you have to hook them right away. But
About how long do you have to capture? And this is no offense to movie execs. How long do you have to capture their attention? Would you say?
20 seconds.
You want to get them right away
quick,
excited.
Yep.
No more than 5 minutes, probably, right?
Yeah.
And so much of business doesn't happen in a setting too that is organized where you're like, here's my whole presentation. So the reason they call it an elevator pitch is because you got in the elevator with the important person, you got just enough time to get to the next floor. So how many times have we been at a cocktail party or a dinner, and someone says, what do you do? And you got to say it like that fast.
You get 2 seconds.
Yep.
When we found our investor for Switched, I was at a house party, and I just that quickly had to say it. And she's like, I love that. Okay, let's talk. So you want to just have it, and they don't have a lot of time. If you're going on and on and on, and they're like, what is this movie about?
Right.
You lost them. So, and it's good to, and the other thing we were talking about before you came up was knowing especially when you talk to people, like, it's this meets that. So our movie Switched, about the girls who switch bodies, is Freaky Friday meets Mean Girls. And when I would say that to people, immediately they had a vision in their mind of exactly what the movie was going to look like and be like, and that's really good to be able to say, it's this movie meets that movie.
Good. And talk to me a little bit about character, because I've often heard, like, you got to start with characters, right? You start with a character. So you're talking about the concept, but who's it begin with in terms of character, would you say?
I would say that character is the log line. It's always who is going on the journey and what is the journey. So we do start with a character. Who is the person that you're sending on a journey, the hero's journey, So we always start with who is it about? What do they need to learn? Where are they going? So you know who you're following. So the character is very important. Who are you following?
So I looked online and I saw this first feature of Catching Faith, right?
Yes.
So I look at the poster and I say, clearly it's a poster about,
There's been a lot of very disappointing date nights. We've had so many people say, we thought it was a football movie.
Yeah, it's about this young man and the coach and their lovely relationship. And then I saw this other poster and I'm like, wait a minute, which one is it?
Yep. Yeah, so we sold Catching Faith to RLJ Releasing, so grateful to work with them. But when we presented, we made the posters ourselves, and we presented the posters when you're a sales agent or you take this to market to meet with a studio or a distribution company, you present them the posters. It's the first thing that we'll go into this in producing tomorrow, but the first thing that they look at, the first thing your audience looks at. You should always be thinking about your poster even when you're writing. You should know who your audience is, who you're speaking to. Don't say it's for everybody. You don't want it to be for everybody. You want to hit an audience, and the distribution company wants to know who they're marketing to. So anyway, we presented all these, and then at the end of the day, they chose that, and that's what went to Walmart. And we were a little bit disappointed because that was only that was like companion poster. That was the main poster, but they didn't end up going with that. So there's nothing you can do. The distribution company makes a decision. It took a little while for women to know it was for them. But
I was going to say, so then the main character is actually...
it's Alexa Taylor.
It's a
She's
mom,
our
right?
lead.
Yeah.
We follow her, yes. Mm-hmm.
So it's a mom story.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And how's football play into the story?
Well, her son is the football star. So, and the real idea of the movie came out of one personal experience that I had with someone in our family who their child broke the athletic code and nobody knew. So they wouldn't have had to, admit it, and they could have kept playing, but the parent made them go and turn themselves in. And do the right thing.
The athletic code,
the athletic code,
drinking,
like they were drinking
or cheating or something like that?
Yes.
Oh.
And then they
So they were
got
endangering
benched.
their ability to play.
Yes, and the whole idea is Alexa Taylor's character, she's kind of buttoned up and she has it all together and she has a persona in town and she lives in a small town, and when they make this decision, they know that everybody is going to know that her family is messy.
Yeah, because it's about her son is a star of the football team, and he gets caught drinking at a party, and the cops take another kid and not him because they don't take the star player.
That's
And-
never happened
No,
before.
never happened.
Never happened.
But they find out, and the parents decide that they think that he should tell the truth even though no one's looking. And the whole movie is about integrity, and everybody in the film is learning how to tell the truth no matter who's looking. So that's where Alexa Taylor doesn't want anyone to know that her family isn't perfect, that her life's not perfect, and her coming to terms with being real and admitting that.
So you have issues with dad, right?
Yeah.
So you got the dynamics.
Telling, yeah.
And then you got tension between mom and son, right?
Yeah, he does not want to turn
He did
himself
not
in.
want to turn himself in. He was not happy about that, and he didn't.
He got away with it.
He got away with it. He didn't have to. Yeah.
And talk to me some about obstacles, because I think that oftentimes with screenwriting, we're maybe not hard enough on our characters, right? It's like we love our characters, we want them to win, and we don't want to kind of push them, but you push them into some uncomfortable areas here. True?
Very true. Yes, and partly for me, I think part of my passion in filmmaking is that I think that, and especially faith-based filmmaking, I think it's really hard to follow after Jesus. And I think that oftentimes we make it look easy, and it's not. And so this whole story is really, it's about like she has to be strong. And if you're a parent and you have to make a really hard call and then hold your kid accountable, you all may be really, really angry with your parent, right? And it's also really hard as a parent to do that. And so we really tried to, I think, represent what that conflict is like and how to wrestle through it, and that it's messy and it's hard and sometimes sad and sometimes produces lots of anger. And
That's good. And then there's friends who maybe aren't as friendly as they could be.
See, I wrote it to give myself a part.
she's great.
But then
Fabulous.
you're not playing the star. You're not playing the hero. You're
No.
playing kind of the.
No, I played the sidekick. I figured as a writer, producer, it would be a little difficult to be the star of the movie. And I actually loved playing I'm a super bubbly, happy person. So it was really fun as an actor to get to play the mean, mischievous friend who turns on her and kind of evil. And Alexa Taylor is actually played by Lorena Segura York, who's been one of my best friends since we were 21. So I just called her and said, "You're coming to Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, and you're going to make this movie, and we're going to play enemies, and we're going to have so much fun." And yes, so I represent, the friends who turn on you when you don't do what they want you to do, and it hurts the football team when he has to get benched. So showing the people who turned on her.
Well, and talk to me
That's
some
me.
about villains, because I think,
Yeah.
again, there may be a tendency to not want to, I don't know, villainize people or something like that. But you think of even like an old film like The Fugitive, where Tommy Lee Jones is like pursuing Harrison Ford. In some ways, that movie is made possible by Tommy Lee Jones and the
Yeah.
ferocity
Yeah.
of the villain, right? So talk to me about the importance of that part of the story, right? That, again, that messy side.
Well,
of
what
it.
you just said, I mean, that tension's what we like to watch.
Yeah.
So I would argue that those are some of the most fun scenes, or when we see Jesse, when we were in audiences, people would have start to applaud as soon as they saw that red hair. Like, she's a lot of
'Cause
fun
they knew
to
trouble
watch.
was coming,
They knew trouble was coming. And I think we kind of sometimes want to see that, right? Like, we know, I'm not going to admit that I'm thinking that, but it's really fun to watch someone else say that and do that and act that out. So I think that's why those villains are so important for us. They portray that other part of us, or the part we're trying to maybe work on.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I was an English major as an undergrad, and like John Milton's Paradise Lost, right? The devil is very attractive, right? Very
Yeah.
compelling character. Sort of, you understand the reasons, right? And the rationale of why he's doing the things he's doing. I think it's harder to portray goodness sometimes, right? To sort of show someone making those right choices
Yeah.
as well.
And she creates a lot of the conflict, because Jesse, my character, is representing everything Alexa Taylor was afraid to do and what would happen to her in her relationship, but also I think it helps Alexa Taylor to see who she was when she steps out of seeing what her friend is, that's how her heart was and how she was, and not liking that.
So the female-driven football film,
Yes.
Party of One, right? You
Yeah.
guys were the first.
Yeah.
Or maybe The Blind Side was maybe also up there. It's
definitely.
kind
I
of
think
similar.
that was after. wasn't
Yeah, but I'm
it?
just
I
saying
don't
it's a
know.
similar, but I'm saying it's a
yeah,
similar.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
sort of
I
like those are
mean,
the
no.
only couple of one. So that's
Yeah.
one kind of genre.
Yeah.
Let's talk about another genre. This is Wish for Christmas, or my Spanish is not so great, but Un Pedido de Natal. So clearly this is something that traveled around
Yes.
to other countries and languages.
Yes.
That's kind of fun.
It's a
Oh,
very.
and just to let you guys know, Catching Faith went on to become the top 5 consistent selling movie for RLJ releasing. So
that's
even
great.
though they
That's
said
great.
there were no movies,
That's
we
great.
were right.
You showed 'em.
And
You showed 'em.
yeah, we created it, and we're able to prove that there's an audience and a model for it. So I like to.
That's very cool. So Wish for Christmas, should we
Yeah.
show the trailer? You want to talk about, or what should we
What would
do?
you guys
Trailer.
rather? Yeah.
You want to see the trailer?
Okay.
Fun,
All right, we'll show you the
fun.
trailer. All right.
Yeah. So after.
Where did the idea, where did this one
Yeah.
come from?
Yeah, well, so we grew up minister kids, and we were thinking about a fun Christmas movie. We knew we wanted to do a Christmas movie because they sell year round, and we were talking about, well, obviously, when you're raised in a minister's home, you think that if your parents didn't believe in God, you get away with more things. You could have this happen and that happen. I missed out on things because I thought my parents were so strict. Of course, now as an adult, I'm so grateful for who they are and what they instilled in me, but you don't always feel that way as a kid. So we just got to talking about, what would it look like if you could wish Anna's a spoiled, self-centered senior girl in high school, and when the big winter ball gets moved to Christmas Eve night, she can't attend because she has to go to church with her family, and she prays that they would lose their faith. And she goes on to find out what it's like when the light of Jesus is removed from her parents' heart, and her parents become a reflection of who she is. They become spoiled and self-centered, and she sees herself, and she's like, ooh, I don't like that very much. And she goes on a quest to find faith. And so, so that was we were talking about, what if I did wish mom and dad's faith away and it worked? And who would our parents be? What would our life be like? What a good way to do a wish, it's a wonderful life kind of idea of what would your life look like if you got what you wanted, but it wouldn't be what you really wanted. So that's kind of how we just brainstormed that idea. And we loved the idea. We had a sales agent at the time, so we would write down log lines and send it to him, and he'd be like, oh, that's lame, or no, it's never going to sell. And then when we pitched him Wish for Christmas, he was like, that'll sell. Go and write that movie, and let's make that one next. So.
And Andrew, again, if you're dealing with like an actual teenager and issues and thoughts and stuff, what all did you sort of want to make sure was part of the tension and the drama?
Well, I mean, one, I was a teenager too. So we'll say that I remember the little ways that you try to get away with stuff, or feeling like your parents' rules are ridiculous, they don't make any sense, and nobody else has to follow those rules. And I definitely relate to that idea of, especially if you've grown up in a church-going home, you just wonder what it would be like. I didn't have to go to church so much. I'd have so much more time, and I'd be able to do so much more fun things, and so I think that was part of it for me. But as a parent, I would say what's really was fun in this is just how do you hold the line and not have your kids hate you? And I think that's really what we tried to wrestle with, and tried to show the parents, like, man, I wasn't even trying to do that, and she's still mad at me. I can never say the right thing. And, trying to sort of wrestle out what that's like as being the parent on the flip side. And then vice versa, when they do to make the switch, it is really fun. I mean, Lee Allen and Joey are great, and they are so fun. Like, I mean, all of a sudden they're just like, they give their kid everything. And the tattoo thing, or the piercing thing is just hilarious. I think it's not in the trailer, but they like take a needle that's like super thick and hold it up, and it's like, oh, she faints. And it's like, oh no, maybe I don't want that. So it's kind of fun, that idea of what if your parents just said yes, and then would you really want it when you got that opportunity?
And what if they weren't a part of your life as much? They're very involved in her life, and then they become never there, and she's like, I don't really, they're just so work hungry and money hungry that everything, and they are never there anymore, and she doesn't get to.
How do you balance sort of, like, in some ways it's a dark concept, just like It's a Wonderful Life is a scary, it's a bit of a nightmare as a film, right?
Yeah.
So how do you do like a light Christmas film about a Christmas wish that has this kind of heavy undercurrent? How do you balance those things?
Cast really funny actors.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Comedy at the right moment.
Yep.
Just when it starts to get too heavy.
We kind of like, we always want to do like, I think all of our movies deal with very heavy subject matters, but we're doing it in a very light, fun way that you can watch it over and over and over. So the undertone is there, but we try to bring out the funny. We're always like, how do we make this funny and enjoyable? And And do you find that in the writing process? Is it on the page? Is it also captured with the actors on set? Kind of what's the balance of that? Between
we think we're hilarious.
Yeah, we think we're the funniest people in the world.
So when we're writing jokes, they're awesome. Now, when Bill Engvall read some of them, he was like, I can make this
I was going to
better.
say, so you got a professional comedian, right, like Bill Engvall, who does jokes for a living.
He does.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you want them to stick to the script, or is it okay for them to improv? What's your relationship as?
It's a great question.
Combination. I think it's a combination. I think there's some things where we know you need to say this line and it needs to be hit at a certain time, or it won't, because we really work hard to have setups and payoffs. But there's a lot of times when Bill was like, I think we should do this. And sometimes it's not that he added anything like any words to the script. It was an action or something that was just funny.
He'd always tag on something at the end of the scene, so he'd do our dialogue and then he'd throw a joke in the end, or he'd do a couple of takes with ours and then play a little bit, which was nice, so that in the editing room, if we really did need our words, they were there. Because you do want the actors to say, we do a lot of setups and payoffs, and the actors aren't always thinking about the beginning to the end. And sometimes we'll have an actor drop a line and we'll be like, no, you need to say that because in another scene way back here you said this and you just don't remember, but we do remember that that's a setup and a payoff. So
Well, it shows the importance of that script supervisor position, right? That person who's capturing continuity, understanding that all those pieces are being picked up, right? Because reshoots are expensive.
We've never had reshoots on any of our movies.
That's good.
No,
That's good.
We've never had a reshoot. And
Well, and another interesting, funny thing is that sometimes, especially for, like parts like what Bill would play that are a few days, they sometimes don't read the whole script. So that's why it's so important for us to say, no, you need to say that, because they don't even know how it fits into the whole story. They just learned the parts or the pages that they have for that day.
And here's the key, write really great dialogue and then they won't want to change
That's
it
true.
either. So that's another
true.
key, write good stuff, because we just worked with Mina Suvari, and one of her notes when she signed on to the movie was she's like, I love the script. I don't want anything changed. If anything changes, it has to come through me and my agent. And we're like, hey, thank you. We love that you love it so much. We don't want to change it either. So that's always good, you know, that they won't want to change it.
And talk to me about drafts, because I think we tend to think like, well, I finished it, right? I got a first draft. It's done.
Yeah.
That's not true.
No.
How many drafts? What's it take before you start to really feel like, yeah, this is it?
They're all a little different.
Yeah,
We've done
the
a lot,
process.
but you know, once we've, because our Identity Crisis, we didn't even write in the same room, which I think is the first time we've never written in the same room. But usually we'll come up with a log line, we'll work on the beats, we'll work on the boards, we'll, you know,
Scenes.
scenes,
Scene by scene.
the same guy calls them boards, the outline. And then once we feel like that's solid, I'll fly to her, or we'll fly together and get together in the same room and sit there and just write out the script. And then once we feel like we have a solid first draft, we put it away for a minute and we let it percolate, and then we come back to it and do a couple more passes. And then when we feel like it's really getting there, we have some test readers that we go out to and say, okay, what do you guys think about this? Are we hitting it? Is there something missing? Is there something we don't see? So we definitely utilize test readers a lot. We go after our audience, you know, like Isabel, her daughter, reads our script and be like, you old people, no one talks like this. They're like, tell us how
We
you
get that a
talk.
lot. We get that a lot.
On Switch, the girls were like, we literally had a scene where they say, I'm in the Twilight Zone, and the girls all came up to us and they were like, what's the Twilight Zone? And I'm like, what? And I was like, okay, well, what would you say if you were feeling like everything was out of whack in the universe? And they were like, there's a glitch in the system. And we were like, say that. So when it comes to like slang, we just let the kids tell us.
It's
what
good.
you guys
It's good.
say.
No, you got to hand it off. Make
Yeah,
sure
but we
it
definitely
rings authentic.
we definitely, for the teen girl stuff, we have a lot of young girls read it to make sure that we're speaking.
And that first time when we send it to our first batch, it is quite remarkable how different it will be from that point to the end. But just so if anyone has to do this and is doing that, it is the hardest thing in the world to push that button, even when it's your friends, to say, can you read this? And then you wait days, sometimes weeks, and they just are busy. But you're thinking, oh, they're trying to figure out how to, tell us how awful it is. And then a lot of times, I think one of the things we've really wrestled with is when people do tell you, I really don't like this or I don't resonate with it, and it's one of our babies and something that was really important to us. How far do you fight, or when do you listen? And that whole dance is quite an interesting process. So.
Yeah, and you're always looking for the similarities in the notes, you
Yes,
know,
yes.
ooh, across the board. It's almost like doing a test screening of a movie. Same thing. You're looking for across the board, where did everybody have a hang up and a problem? But yeah, I mean, we have like our group of test readers, and that's been gold for us to help us, you know, see if we're on track. And we're always massaging the dialogue. We're always going in and making sure, is this serving the story? Identity Crisis went through a ton of drafts and actually a lot of big changes, because we were like, this isn't serving the story, or this isn't making sense. And then the military got involved, and we were like, okay, this is becoming like a Mission Impossible. The military's gonna come in and take the clone away. And we're like, that'd be fun, but we know we're not getting $30 million, so let's raise this back and figure out how to make this work, because we were trying to figure out what to do with the clone and all that stuff. And you know, we went through so many different ideas of where the clone would go and how the clone would be handled at the end of the movie.
So but the key point, I think, is having critics that you trust, and then being willing to actually listen to the critics, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
soliciting notes, and then actually, right, being able to hear and incorporate
Yes.
those notes.
Yeah, and I think if you do the legwork ahead of time, like I said, like we really do the beat sheet and we do the boards and the outline, and every scene has a conflict, every scene has what does each character want in the scene. If you do that legwork ahead of time, your first draft's gonna be pretty good, because you already did all the hard work. Your first draft could almost be readable for somebody, and then you can take it from there and massage dialogue and massage scenes and go, this scene doesn't work. But I think for us, we do so much of the legwork ahead of time. When we hit fade in, we have a really strong story that, you know, we used to put it up in her
Yep,
kitchen,
true.
these boards that on all the thing and move them
Index
around
cards,
and the index
different
cards.
colors.
And now we use computers. It's not as fun, but
It
it's
isn't as fun. It's not as pretty. Yeah.
Not as visually stimulating.
No, but
That's
since
good.
we worked together, we had to be able to work on the computer.
Understand.
I
So-
still love those cue cards.
Catching Faith was so successful, you made a sequel.
Yes.
So you went back. Did you film it in Wisconsin again?
We
No.
didn't.
New location.
New location. We filmed in
Yep.
Louisville, Kentucky. And lots of reasons for that. We discovered that when we did film in Wisconsin, we were located very far away from an airport, very far away from some things that made it difficult to bring people in, and so we
So practical considerations.
Practical
But when you're
considerations.
writing, you have locations in mind, but you're not locked into a location,
No,
right?
we change our locations all the time. We're so grateful for GCU. We
Yeah.
have written a bowling alley scene in every single one of our movies, and we have never secured a bowling alley. If
alley.
you see Switch, it's a roller rink. So when you guys had a bowling alley, and
We're
we're
like, we're
sold.
sold.
We just put a bowling alley scene in our movie. We change our locations all the time
Yeah.
because we try to write that it's not about where they are, it's what they're saying inside
Yeah.
the story. They can be standing anywhere, but it's what are they saying? What is the conversation? And that set piece can be anywhere. So we're, as indie filmmakers, you're always running and gunning and be like, that location didn't work. Okay, we'll just change it to something else. And it doesn't matter because it's really about what they're saying to each other and how it's moving the storyline along for the hero's journey.
Yeah, and I would say that because of the indie filmmaking aspect of it, we look for the resources and then go, okay, how can we tell the story in the most beautiful way? And so when Louisville offered us so much, and so many of the look at that. Let me just tell you the story about that. This is a high school in rural. It's about 45 minutes outside of Louisville, Kentucky, and they literally got their student body involved so that they rotated those stands for a whole day for us. And they would just have the kids like on a schedule, and they'd go back into their class, and then they'd send another group out, and they kept. I mean, it's just amazing. Production value was amazing, and it was all given it to us.
Marching band and the cheerleaders. I mean, it looked amazing.
Well, you'll get some Havoc activity here, true? Can we do some Havoc? They can get a little feel for that.
And I think what's also cool to know about Catching Faith too was we had actually written Switch and our other movie, The Greatest Inheritance, and RLJ Releasing found our sales agent and said, oh my gosh, Catching Faith's doing so good. Can we get a sequel? And we said, yes, are you going to pay for it? And the distribution company's like, oh no, we won't pay for it, but we'll buy it when it's done. So we still had to raise the private investment. So we were kind of coming up with ideas, and Andrea and I said, let's just go for it and write the script and then pray that the right people come. So we actually did step out, and we got together, and we were like, we came up with the idea for Catching Faith 2. We wrote it, and it's so good to have something because the opportunity did come, but we were prepared. We had the script ready to go when we met the right investors for it. So, we didn't wait until we had it. We wrote it, and then we had it ready to go.
Well, and I think we often get stuck on like that one project that's like, this is the next one.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always go that way,
No, we're
right? So you
all
need
over the
like
place.
3 or 4 like in your pocket,
Yeah.
depending on what the timing is, right? You got to have several scripts that if the opportunity presents itself.
Well, we actually Andrea went to Louisville to really scout for our teen girl movie Switch, and then that fell to the wayside, and we got the opportunity to make Catching Faith 2, and she called everyone up and said, would you guys still want us to come make a movie?
It's a different one.
But they all loved Catching Faith,
and
so that
they
helped
did.
a lot.
And the really cool thing about how that wove together was that when Catching Faith 2 was done and the investment came in for Switched, we went back to Louisville because everybody was so excited because they had wanted to tell that story, but they're like, sure, we'll make a movie with you. And then they were like, yeah, game on. So we were able to turn around really quick, and it was really awesome.
And
the
writing
community,
a sequel's fun
Yes,
because
it
we
is.
already
You
knew
already
all
know
the
your
characters.
Right, you're bringing
so
back
we're
a
just bringing all the
coach.
characters.
You're bringing back the coach. You're
Bring back
bringing back
Billingville.
Yep.
Mom's got her issues.
Yeah, Mom's got her issue.
You know, and the
Jessie
bad
got
girls
that.
is worse or
It's
whatever.
worse. Well, you know what's interesting was we, one of the cool things about Jessie was we found out with our audience that they were very unhappy that Jessie and Alexa Taylor don't reconcile at the end of Catching Faith. And people were really upset about it. We were like, but this is real life. You don't always, it's not all,
Yep.
a lot of our movies are rosy peaches and cream by the end because we wanted people to walk away with a happy ending. But that was something we were like, no, sometimes you don't reconcile with a friend, and it's okay to let a friend go if that friend is not unhealthy. So in Catching Faith 2, we were like, we could bring her back and we can reconcile it for that audience. And it's a really cool scene between. So
Nice.
what?
No, it's just funny when I think about when she says reconcile. You got to watch the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't give it
I don't
away.
know if it's quite reconcile.
Don't give it away. Don't give it away.
They make up.
No,
Don't give it away.
They
They
apologize
do.
for her
Yeah,
behavior.
that's true.
We won't give it away, but
So-
Jesse comes back in a big way in Catching
Yes,
Faith
she
2.
does.
Of course, you have family and reconciliation.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think this is an interesting aspect of your film. So you're not just writing the films, but you're also writing like study guides
Yes.
and curriculum to go along with it.
Yes, all of our films. Andrea
Yes. Yeah.
is incredible.
Well, Catching Faith 1, we actually wrote based on a lot of research I had done because I had written a Bible study that was really successful. And some of the stories that came out of that really inspired Catching Faith. And we discovered that people love to talk about what they're watching. And I love to talk about what I'm watching. And so we designed, I think this is
This is for Catching Faith 2.
yeah,
I think,
this
in
is
one.
Catching Faith 2, and I think that this is actually more based on a question out of the movie. So we have
Yeah.
a movie guide, we also have Bible studies and things like that. But so that you can host a movie night and youth group or your life group or your book club and watch it and then have some discussion starters. So we always have that available. I think in our most recent one it's going to be digital, but they were like downloadable off of the DVD. And then we'd also host them somewhere on the website so that you could get all that nice companion material and continue to talk about it. Because I think that we both think that there's great conversations that come out of our movies. We try to ask really hard questions and then want everyone to talk about it afterwards.
So much. Yeah, we got a message from a woman who watched Catching Faith 1, and her son walked in the room halfway through, sat through it, asked to restart it, watched it again, and then he told her some stuff that was going on in school that he had never told her before. Like, it opened up a chance for him to tell the truth and talk it, and that's what we're always trying to come up with ways to get parents and kids to be able to communicate with each other and make it, make them vulnerable to be like, you can talk about this. And like Switch, some parent called and said their daughter had a guitar. She was afraid to do everything. She watched Switch. She got up, grabbed her guitar, practiced, came out at dinner and played the guitar for the whole family. And she was like, that just changed my daughter's life. Your movie gave her permission to try something. And like, we're always trying to how can we
That's great.
do that kind of stuff, like what Andrea said.
So
Yay!
Switched, I don't want to give away too much on Switched because we're going to watch it on Friday night.
Yes.
But it's got elements we've seen of like the young woman who has gifts, but maybe
Yep.
is bullied,
Yeah.
right? Is mistreated.
Should I do the log? Have I done the log line?
You haven't
You
done the log
haven't.
line.
Go
Let's
for
hear
it.
the
Do
log
the
line.
pitch.
the
I did
pitch.
this pitch in a lot of studio meetings, so no, it's about. Oh my gosh! I just went to do identity
doing
crisis.
identity, yeah.
My brain. It's about a girl in high school who's. Wait, can you help me? Have you started? Oh my gosh! I have so many pitches in my head. See, don't do this when you go into a meeting. But it's about a girl in high school gets bullied. And
then
she prays that
that
the
her
other
bully
girl,
would walk a
would know
day in
it's
her
like to walk a
shoes.
day in her shoes, and they wake up switched, and they go on to find empathy and love and compassion for each other. And I always say, Mean Girls meets Freaky Friday. Boom.
Mean Girls. We have at least 3 Mean Girls.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, we
got
do.
some Mean Girls in this movie. That's Vanessa Merrill. I don't know if anyone knows the Merrill twins. Yeah. And what's cool is this script won the Movie Guide Awards for Best Screenplay. So that was really
nice.
exciting.
Bravo.
Yeah.
Very nice.
The Movie Guide Awards.
Very nice.
Very cool. Yeah.
Again, you're dealing with parents. Again, we
Yeah.
don't want to give away
No, I don't want to
too
give
much.
away too
Yeah, so
much.
you guys all have to come see the movie.
But you're
Yeah.
dealing with parents, and it's interesting. It seems like there's not enough films that deal with, I don't know, just that tension where you're trying to treat both teens with dignity,
Yep.
Yeah.
as well as parents with dignity.
Exactly.
And they sort of
That's-
always
yeah.
choose a
Yes,
side
yes.
and maybe demonize the other,
Right. I think we try really hard to not do that, to really, the dignity of everybody in this system, right? In this family system. We try.
And I think even for writers to think through that, right? Like, how do you treat everybody with respect, even though they're maybe doing something in the plot for you?
Right.
They're not just like a chess person on your board, right?
Right.
It's like you're trying to. It's someone made in God's image,
Yeah.
fallen,
Yeah.
not perfect, but how do you bring them in a way that humanizes, right, rather than dehumanizes?
Right.
Tough to
Right.
do.
Yeah. I think one thing that I don't want to say too much either, but one thing that I loved was when you write something, it's like when you read a book and you imagine it all and then you watch somebody else do the adaptation and you go, oh my gosh, that wasn't what that character was supposed to look like. And so when we write it, in my mind, I know what it's going to look like. I even know what the characters look like. And that's oftentimes not who gets cast, and it doesn't look like that. And sometimes they don't even act in the way that I was thinking when it was written. And John Snyder's a great example, and I don't want to give anything away, but he plays this character awesome, way better than I imagined it. And so that was really fun. He brought it to life in a way that I hadn't, that's not what I thought that he was going to be like. So it's kind of fun.
And the screenplay for this was extraordinarily challenging because we have two girls who halfway through switch bodies. So then you have the face of somebody, but the brain of someone else talking. And I remember being in the writing room, like writing it. It was so confusing. We're like, no, that's Katie Sharp, but it's Cassandra's mind. So Cassandra's saying this, and then Katie's talking to this person, but it's Cassandra's friend who's reacting to the other girl who's not the girl. And that was like that was a very interesting challenge of how to label that and then how to do it correctly when you bring that to set. Did you want to have the right actor show up? Because even though it's Katie Sharp's body, it's Cassandra Evans' mind. We don't want Cassandra showing up when it's the other actress. So we had a real fun challenge of doing a switching bodies movie, but definitely in the writing, we had to figure out like Katie Sharp's body, Cassandra Evans' mind in parentheses. So, I mean, when we even got to the casting and crewing up, I was like, I know you guys, it's going to be hard to read this script because it's confusing. Your brain is trying to figure this out. But we were able to do it, and it was a fun challenge. It was but we'd be sometimes in the writing room,
I
like
think there
pulling
was
out our
headaches,
hair,
like, at
being
times,
like, no,
it was like,
that's not
is
that
that
person.
right? Yeah, no, wait, that's not the right person.
And then we were just kind of like, is it going to work? You do something so outside the box. When we got to set, I was like, this might not even work. It might don't. And then when we started seeing it come to life, we were like, it's working. Okay, it's working.
Yeah.
I've seen the film. It is charming and fun and deep all at the same time, which is hard to do.
Thank you.
And so
Thank you.
6 p.m. Friday night, right over in the sanctuary at the church. And I believe we have cookies tonight. There will be a popcorn. Proper popcorn on Friday night. So y'all come on out. Come join us. So please join us. Tonight, I just want to open up for questions and thoughts and comments. What do you guys think on the writing process? What do you want to know?
Yeah, we got one.
And actually, maybe we have a mic. Maybe we can well, you can just speak up. Just speak up and we'll hear you.
I guess I have a question for you because, like you said, you were a licensed social worker. Would you say that has helped your writing career in a way, or how has it? I guess?
Let me repeat it. So the question is, how has being a licensed social worker helped in the writing process or contributed to that?
I think it has. I come to the film world from a very different perspective, and not with a lot of the technical experience that other people have. But I think when we're writing, I've had the honor of walking with a lot of people through a lot of really difficult things, and that it changes who you are and it informs your writing. And it's also helped us when we've often tried to figure out like what issues are going on, like really going on, and I have a lot of firsthand experience to be able to say, this is a really high statistics that's for real. And I also, I mean, it's kind of a passion, but I also think it does inform our writing process. I feel like mental health needs to be represented better in media and in the arts.
For sure.
And I also think it really needs to be handled differently by the church and by Christians. And so we've had a real opportunity to talk about mental health from that perspective, being able to allow a conversation to happen about that. And that definitely, I mean, that's because that's what my vocation is, if that makes sense. Did I answer?
Yes, I love that you mentioned mentioned mental health because I'm a psychology
Yes.
major, and I love writing, but psychology was like the major that can be practical but kind of keep me
Yep.
interested
Yep.
enough. So I love that you said that.
Well, let me just share one other thing, because I was thinking about this actually after I was talking to Professor Westernson this morning. So every time you write, you get better at writing, whatever kind of writing you're going to do. And I was thinking about how I have to write, like literally at the end of the month right now, I have hundreds of pages of notes. And they're technical, a lot of it, but every time I'm writing, I'm practicing writing and I'm getting better at writing. And I know sometimes the people that are reading my clinical notes are like, Andrew, you didn't need to describe what the tablecloth looked like, you know. But every time I'm doing it, I'm practicing. And so I encourage you in any kind of writing you're doing, whether it's clinical writing or research, all of that you're practicing the skill of writing, and it'll inform everything. So, bravo.
Yeah, here. I want to actually just give a plug also. We have one of our professors here in theater, Michael Carey's written a book on empathy and acting.
Ooh,
and I think that is truly at the heart of both your practice in social work, but also the theatrical practice or the dramatic practice. So that entering into, right, which is at the core of who we're called to be as people of faith, right, entering into someone else's shoes, literally entering into someone else's body, right? It's like you're sort of pushing us in that way.
Yes.
Well, yeah, and to tackle bullying, it's such a big topic. And we talked about bullying so much. I mean, bullying is something everyone experiences. It stays with you forever. I was bullied so bad. But we were, just trying to always find ways of how to have these conversations, but to keep it light, because we want kids to share it with other kids. We want families to be able to watch it over and over and over. And we were like, bullying can be so hard. We don't want it to be that they never want to watch the movie again because it's so heavy. And that is like where she comes in with so much of her knowledge of bullying, although I came from a really big bullying place, but her with her clinical license, social worker, and then trying to find a way that it's like what you said, it's really deep, but it's also really funny. So it's like finding that way to make it entertaining. This is entertainment. And we want kids and families to walk away with hope and joy. The joy of the Lord is our strength. We should be sharing joy in our work and making people want to go to the Bible. We want kids to want to open up the Bible. So but
great.
Yeah.
More questions?
It's a tangent. Sorry.
Yes.
This has been awesome, by the way. Super inspiring. Thank you guys for doing this.
Thank you.
My question is just as you guys make Christian films, like Christian is integrated in your films. So my question is, what challenges have you guys had with buyers that are like, yo, I don't want the Christian part in your story, or like, has there been a lot of challenges with that, or people just mostly accepting towards it?
Great question.
Question is, to what degree has the fact that it's a Christian film been problematic for buyers and gotten in the way of marketing and sales? What do you think?
It's so hard. Yeah,
you can share the experience you had with what they wanted us to do with Switch in order to make the big movie.
Yep, that's right. We have decided we are keeping God in our stories, and it isn't the most popular thing in Hollywood, and we've been to Netflix and Hulu, and we've done a lot of studio meetings. I had switched out in LA to every studio, and we kept getting, it's a little tough. It's like for the faith audience, it's switching bodies, whoa, and then for the, mainstream, well, it's got faith in it. So we're falling into, but we knew we were kind of trailblazing and making something new with this teen girl outside the box Disney. We knew there was an audience, but we were trying to convince the studios to understand there was an audience, just like Catching Faith. And I got a meeting with this company, and I was on the call with them, and they were like, we love it. We love it. We love it. We love it. We'll give you $1.5 million. And you can make it, our only two things is we want you to remove God and make it raunchy. We want the girls to go to parties, get drunk, do all these inappropriate things. And I was sitting on the call just like, oh my gosh, Lord, like I feel like I've been beaten down. Everyone said no. This is the first studio that said even yes at all.
And at the time, the most money that you had ever been offered.
We had been offered. And we ended up, of course, walking away and saying we will not take God out, and we will never represent women in any way that isn't positive. We want to change the culture for young women. So it was tough, but we walked away from it, and we were like, we're going to keep God, and God has blessed us. We're always like, we're not taking God out, because, oh God, I don't know what our career would look like. God blesses us so much. But it is a challenge, but I also think to stand strong. And, I was just on a podcast with someone asked me about that. And I said, you know what? I work for the creator of the universe. When I go into a meeting, I feel so much confidence that if God wants something, he will move the mountains. And I'm not there to convince them. I'm just there to honor God. And if a door closes, it just means God's going to open up a different door, and he has done it so many times. We step out in faith. I gave up my apartment in Los Angeles and went on the road and lived out of a suitcase for a year to make Catching Faith, because that's how much I believed in it. And then God blessed us so much. So, and the other thing, we were actually talking about the faith element, because faith movies can be cheesy, and we know all this. When we first got called, we were like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I want to make
I said I don't like faith movies. She asked me to write that.
And we were like, again, how do we do it different? How do we do it better? How do we incorporate the Lord in a way that doesn't feel, we want to make it so, sometimes you watch a movie and you're a Christian, you're like, I don't talk like that. Or I'm not like at the bowling alley being like, so have you read your Bible today? And do you?
Yeah, I'm like, I'm getting this right, man.
So we have really, really worked on how to incorporate faith within our films, so it's woven in a way that doesn't just feel like it's out of left field. And we make movies about Christians, about people who believe in Christianity, and that makes them make decisions in the movie. And then the other thing that we've done that we found is really, really good is that we always have in the movie a mentor that always talks about the Lord. So the audience starts to get used to, when that person comes on, here we're going to get a little bit of the message of this film. Like in Wish for Christmas, the pastor. And he's a very cute man, so no one, all the people who were believers who came and watched it was like, we had no problem Jeff Schroeder telling us about God. Keep bringing that guy on screen, And we were like, and same with the last movie we made, the Greatest Inheritance, we casted Jaleel White, who played Urkel. And he plays the executor of the will, and every time he comes on, he's got a Bible verse because it goes with the game and the thing. So we try to make it so it doesn't come out of left field, because I think that's the hardest thing with faith-based. It feels like, how do you do it organically and not like you're preaching? Instead, does that make sense? Yeah. So
I don't know. Did we answer the question?
Well, we answered a couple different ones.
Yeah.
But we want to go into the faith-based thing because it is a real challenge. It's also a relationship with a supernatural being that we're trying and films are a visual medium of a relationship. So you're trying to have a relationship with something that's not in the room, and how to do that without being doing prayer scenes and stuff like that. Finding a way to really weave it in. We tell stories. We first tell a story, and then we weave in the faith. We never start with a sermon. We're saying it's about this person who goes through this journey, and then in there we weave in how the faith plays out.
Good. Well done. More questions? Yes.
As a young aspiring writer and director from a small town, coming to just you to study this, when I graduate, do you have any advice of where graduates could go to find these people or to fund the movies? How do you make connections? Where do you go to find those people that could potentially help you make your project?
All right. So the question is, once I graduate, where do I go? How do I start? Who do I talk to? Who can help me launch my career?
That's a great question.
Great question. I mean, since we are just ones who create, we have literally created our own career. So I'm always going to be like, get a camera, get some friends together, create something, make something. I mean, if we hadn't made that little tiny movie in a backyard with a bunch of friends, really just to show our parents, and it went on to sell and pave the way. It was like, if you can, I would just say do it and create it and find like-minded people. I feel like, and the industry is changing so much where you don't have to be in Los Angeles. I do think living out there and going to connect, like we just met up at an event, I'm really involved in women in film, there is something about LA. It's still the film capital of the world, and everybody out there is like, you can go to events and meet people, and I do that. When I live in LA, 90% of my life is engaging in going to women in film events, getting into community, meeting people, talking to everyone about, like, we'll talk about the money. I just tell everyone I need money to make a movie, and, just like, if that helps. But you can go to Atlanta, New Mexico. Here you guys are getting film. I mean, there's now film everywhere. So, hook up with the film office, like every, Facebook pages.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
Facebook
relationships.
pages.
Relationships, I think, are the key.
Relationships.
And then I think being willing to do anything. Really.
Say yes.
Like, say yes. Say yes when there's, when you do make those connections and someone says, would you come and take out the trash? Go take out the trash.
We'll get on set.
Because, as much as you possibly can.
That was the mistake I made for 10 years pursuing acting. I was waiting tables and not participating in the film business because I was trying to get an acting role. And then when I moved to New Mexico and I became a stand-in and a PA, and I was like, I'll run coffee, I'll take out the trash. I met all these people. So just getting on set and being willing to take a job, and like when our sales agent said, will you make a faith-based film and I'll get the money? We actually went out and executed it. We called him and we said, we need the money. And he's like, do you know how many people I've made that offer to and no one took us up on the offer? Like, so it's like, be the person who does it and be like, okay, you said, I was like, don't give us an opportunity. We'll run. We will be ready for it. So, but yeah, I think it's all relationships. It's all about who you know, how you know people, building good relationships, and also, where do you want to live? Like, where do you want to live? And then finding that film community to tap into where you want to live or live close to a pretty big market, because the markets are all over the place now. Did that answer?
I think that it would be smarter for me to get an agent for my scripts, to get patent and stuff like that, because I have been learning a lot about union and when a film is under union or where it's not, or who is and who is not. And I've been learning a lot about who gets the credit when you write, and things like that. Because I have heard from the industry that sometimes it doesn't matter how many people wrote the script; it matters who had the most words in, and that's the person that gets
the credit.
The credit. However, my question now is, how can I get under union so then I have the protection for when I do write for somebody or direct for a movie or even star in it? How can I be protected in that sense?
So the question is, what about a union, and how do you become part of the Writers Guild? How do you get, protection in that way?
We are not part of the
we aren't.
Writers Guild.
So.
We don't have agents.
We
because
don't.
even when we've met with agents, they're like, you go and get your own. We make our own films. So we're so indie. And now we're getting to the level now where we'll probably get an agent soon, but we've just been kind of doing it on our own. That why pay a 10% fee when we're raising our own money and creating our own project. We write the script knowing we're going to take it all the way to the screen, so it's a interest. I think you could get an agent without going to WGA and getting into the Writers Guilds. And I would say if you want to get your stuff work, you might not want to be under a union. Sometimes it's like it can sometimes hinder you more than help you. But if you get with the big agent, you sell it to Paramount, then you want to get with the WGA right away and make sure that you're protected. But I don't know.
No, it's complex. These are the kinds of things we should discuss over cookies.
Yes, because I'm not sure.
But let's take one more. I think I saw one more question right there. Yes, maybe be our final question here. Yeah. Or how many other questions are there? All right, so we're going to take
we'll go quicker.
two more.
Sorry.
All right. Yeah, quick
I'm
answers.
long-winded.
Right.
What did you guys major in college? And if it was different, what made you decide to go into screenwriting?
What did you major in, and was it film?
Yeah, no, it was not film. I have a bachelor's in social work and a master's in social work, and so no, we kind of shared the story of how I got invited into becoming a screenwriter. It wasn't on my bucket list. That's for sure.
Yeah, I did a year of college as a communications major, and then I dropped out. I'm a college dropout. I hate it, but it's okay. God's used me in other ways. I learned from the mean streets of Hollywood. That was my college education. But I think we started writing in a way of like wanting to create our own work. So when we got the opportunity to make a movie, we wrote it so that we could make the movie. And we fell in love with it. And then like, obviously, if you were to watch the trajectory of our films, you'll see our writing gets better, we're learning, we look back at Catching Faith and I go, oh, there's some stuff there that irks me that I'm like, I wish now I could tell myself that we should have done this, but you know, you just gotta keep doing it and move on, keep getting better.
Practice the craft.
Yeah.
Practice the craft.
Yeah.
I think there was one there and then one there. We'll wrap with those two. Yeah.
I'll take this off so you can hear me. My question is, you were talking about how you're getting like in all these meetings, and then they would shoot you down, you go to the next meeting.
Yeah.
But like, how do you even get in those meetings?
Yeah.
You have to meet someone like that.
All right, so the question
That's a
is, you
great
talk about these
question.
meetings,
I
how do you get
know.
at the meeting?
Well,
How do you get
there's
in the
probably
door?
two aspects of it. So I'll speak to my aspect and then let her, because she is the wooer of the room, and that's not my gift. But a lot of how we've been able to do what we do is the relationships, and is all the relationships that came up to the point of whatever we're working on. So when it comes to investment or what have you, we literally went to people that we knew and said, we want to make this movie. Do you know someone who will invest in our film? And so that was relationships, and not so much meetings, but more like, can I take you out for dinner? and where I live, like for a $25 dinner, not a $250 dinner, and talk to you about what we want to work on. But she does, you do so much more.
Well, yeah,
She's
I've been in LA for 22 years, so that's a long time, and I've been out there going to every event. Once I joined the events and figured out this is such a relationship-based industry. And then, like I said, like we made our first couple films completely ourselves, privately investment, and then literally I found Rich Peluso, who's the head of Sony Affirms info on like Facebook, and I like emailed him, and this was after Catching Faith at Wish for Christmas. I was like, you gotta meet me because I'm making these movies and they're awesome and you're gonna love them. And he wrote me back and he was like, come meet me, and I went into Sony and had a meeting. So I will literally just email somebody, and then I met Karen Covell from the Hollywood Prayer Network, told her what I was doing, and she was like, who do you need to meet? But we had a little track record. I will say that, like, getting into a Netflix meeting, we got a Netflix meeting because they were seeing what we were already creating. I wasn't getting a Netflix meeting without something. But like I said, going to events, meeting people, tenacity, sticking
and
by
keeping
it.
track of it too.
Yeah,
Alexandra is very good about keeping a spreadsheet with the people she meets, so that she and where they're from, and so you can go back and keeping the relationships going. Like they're real relationships. They're not just usury, you know.
And even if someone rejects it, doesn't mean they won't come back on the next one. So I'm telling I know Hulu, I'm always talking to my buddy at Hulu, like, okay, this is our next movie. I know you didn't want this one, but you're gonna want the next one. And also just the crazy enthusiasm, if you believed in what you do, like when I go in, we meet with investors or things, I believe in what I am doing, and that'll go a long way, that people go, I wanna get behind that, because we believe in it. And so, but yeah, it's just kind of meeting people, emailing people. IMDb. Go to IMDb and you can find agency, studios information, and just start down the rabbit's hole. And then if you know there's someone you want to meet, tell everybody.
Yeah.
I was looking for WTA, and I was talking to everyone I knew, going, who knows someone at WTA? And finally, Sherry Rigby was like, I know Dave. And I called Dave, and he ended up being the reason Switched had some of the best results. So, just IMDb, be your best friend. Or just, I don't know, all of that. Does that answer your question?
Well, I think it's hard though, because as writers, you often might be more of we'll say an internal
Introvert.
person, someone
I'm
who
not an introvert.
is right. And if you are, then you need to find a producer
There you
who
go.
will be that person who will knock on all those doors and not accept no for an answer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And just know that about yourself, and find that partner
And find the
now
partner.
before you leave.
Yeah. There
Find
you
that person
go.
who can't write but who can sell, and team up.
Yes. Right.
Right? What do you
Yep.
think, like Ron Howard and Brian Grazer or some of these teams are, right? It's
Yeah.
all kind of like that. All right, last question.
Hi, so speaking on the writing process, one pitfall that I see a lot of faith-based movies falling into is that, every non-Christian character can, especially in things like God's Not Dead, can tend to become like a one-note kind of I hate God character. How do you go about writing secular characters, and do you consider secular viewers and how they're going to view the movie?
So question of how do you create well-rounded, kind of even balanced portraits of folks who might be outside of faith? Are you creating kind of a one-sided film, or how do you round it out?
Well, I would say that we observed the same thing you did. And so, and Alexandra mentioned before, if you watch from the beginning to where we are now, you'll see that there's changes. We've learned, we've grown, right? But we definitely, we both believe in the dignity of everybody, no matter what they believe, no matter what their choices, their life choices at that moment are, whatever that is. So whenever we're telling the story, we're looking at how can we tell this from the most dignified position. So if you have faith or you don't have, because actually you can portray people with faith pretty awful too. And that happens a lot. And that always I found kind of offensive. I'm like, I don't really act like that. So we really tried to find that place, that medium. And we're still working on it. It's a work in progress.
Yeah, because we don't want to just say that all people don't believe in God are bad. And you know, I think Wish for Christmas is a really good lesson, because what we thought when we were writing it was more like the parents become a reflection of her, spoiled and self-centered. But audiences who don't believe in God thought we were saying that if you don't believe in God, you're a bad person. And we were like, oh, that was not what we thought.
Intent.
And then sometimes people will watch a movie and take something out of a scene that we never thought of, and they were like, wow, this was so profound. So you never know how people are going to react to what you're doing, but we are always trying to listen and learn and go, okay, like, you know, because that's a really great question.
It's a great question.
And it is, yeah, it's a good question, we're also trying.
It's an important question. I think that's what you're trying to do here at GCU. Like, if you are a God follower, then how do I go into my workplace and do God justice there, right? Like, what does it mean to have a Christian worldview? And there's a lot of people, unfortunately, that have used that Christian worldview like a mallet over people's heads, and it's not working. I don't know if anyone's noticing. So I think that your question is wonderful, and just the fact that you're asking that question is going to inform your writing in a beautiful way.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well
we should
said.
applaud
Well
you
said. I think that's a
at
good
the
one.
closure.
That's a good one.
So,
thank you, Alexandra. Thank you, Andrea. We're going to be back tomorrow night to talk about the nuts and bolts of producing, financing, getting these things made. How do you build a company? How do you get things sold, distributed? All of that stuff. Tonight was about story. Tomorrow is about sales.
Woo! Yeah.
All right?
And they all go together.
All right. So come on back. Tell your friends.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Thanks for coming.